a story for you guys. So I'm back in Eugene, and I've been taking my time and going to the park to relax. There's a nearby park that's close to the river. And I started getting into some spiritual literature. And one of these books that I read, it was about immortality. And it was the story of a man who actually met immortals in India. And he also met the fabled Babaji, the nameless one, consciousness incarnate, or in other words, God. Pretty insane. Pretty insane guy. He's like a yogi Christ. And you can find him in different books. He's incredible, all the stories I read about him. But in this, he had a relationship with Babaji, and he started to speak to him about the immortals, and it was kind of speaking about like true spiritual literature. Now, true or not, it was an interesting read to me, so that's kind of what I'm going off here. But he talked about Jesus Christ, and every time I hear about Jesus, man, my ears perk up. So he said that Jesus Christ was not resurrected. Well, Jesus Christ was resurrected, but he didn't go to heaven. He actually stayed on earth for 40 more years. And every immortal actually has a relationship with Babaji. Jesus was one of them. And in those 40 years, Jesus wrote what was known as the Gospel of Peace, which was the religious text of the Essene Brotherhood. And so the Essenes are a Jewish sect that were killed off during the Second Temple period by the Romans. And if you look at the Romans, that the same ones that killed them are the same ones that started Catholicism today. It is quite a freaking story, but I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to go into the Essenes, because the Essenes were very interesting people. So their Gospels of Peace are 4 books, and the first one's my favorite. The first one speaks on the account of these homeless men, these people who are rejected by their family, hated by society, these, kind of like the people that no one wants to be associated with by our day's terms. And in this, they meet Jesus, and Jesus tells them how to spiritually purify so they meet the Lord, consciousness, the universe, and realize it within. And he talks about the earth as the mother, and how the mother nurtures us. And once we are nurtured through the fruit, through her waters, through her air, and through the sun, we are able to then play with our Father, the universe, the sky, all that. Well, we must realize it, but first we must be nurtured by our mother. And it was very interesting too, because he talked about Satan not as a deity, but as the parasites, the tapeworms, the pinworms, the candida, all of that, the yeast that lives within us. And yeast is a good thing. You don't want to kill all yeast, but yeast overgrowth. But I read the book, and it was super cool because the Essene's importance on water, it was incredible. And one of the things he talks about is bathing yourself. And when I was reading about the Essenes, I learned that in the mornings they would always start their day off with water. They would always eat together after prayer, live in voluntary poverty, all that stuff. They were communal. It was a beautiful society, really. And they had so much to do with water that I kind of thought of them as water people. So either or, yesterday I'm at the river, I'm bathing myself based off these texts, and I'm deep in thought. I was meditating there around the whole time. I was just kind of doing it as a purification, also to understand the power that water has, which, by the way, river water, wild water, is basically like a nuclear power plant of energy. Insane, if you can handle that and manage it. But either or, water is consciousness. Water is just a different form of consciousness. Water is very, very much alive. And you can communicate with water as you can communicate with fire if you're able to get to the subtle levels, because God is in the details. The magic is in the details. So you need to still yourself enough to be able to receive what's going on, the messages you're getting. So as I was meditating, after a certain point, I was able to start communicating with water, which was insane. So it wasn't necessarily water as a whole, but at that moment, it felt like I was speaking to the spirit of the river. It was just nice. It was like telling me like how it loved me for what I was doing, the cleansing, and I was appreciating the water for what it was giving me. And then it kind of asked like, okay, like where did you learn all this? And I started telling it about the Essenes, and this wasn't verbal, this was all telepathic. And I started to tell about the Essenes and how I'm learning about them, and I just found that whole water thing super beautiful. And suddenly this other presence became known to me, and it felt like a collective consciousness, if that makes sense. It was like there were multiple like voices, so to say, like reaching out to me when it would communicate, but it was more like a whole. Imagine like a ball, but every time it would speak, it could be different voices, and you could tell that there was individuals making it up. And this collective consciousness came to my attention along with the water, and it was the Essenes. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because of their devotion to the water, their love and the spiritual purity for it, but it seems like that collective moved to the water after their passing. I'm sure there are other places, but that's where I interacted with them. And it was beautiful. I ended up crying because I was, one, kind of honored to speak with people who had passed, and they felt like they were forgotten. They felt like their teachings were forgotten. They felt like their ways were lost. And to see someone now doing their practices and doing it with love and all that stuff brought them tons of joy. And to me, it was just beautiful to communicate with people that have passed. It's not an interaction I get to have very often, and especially when it's sharing what they loved. And it got a little bit weird sometimes, because at some points I had a pressure to be almost like a prophet, to share and revive their teachings, but I made it clear that I wouldn't do that. I would just speak on their behalf and what they do and what I love about them. And the Gospels of Peace are amazing. You can download Kindle for your phone, and they're $2.22 each book, so you can get the whole thing for $8.88. Dog, numerology, come on now. 888-222. Come on, it's worth it. But yeah, that is my experience with the Essenes, and I really just wanted to share about them. They're great, they're wonderful, their teachings are amazing, and it doesn't hurt to read a little something. It's good for you. So my name is JC, and I hope you guys enjoy. Peace.